7,000 years before the pyramids of Giza, 6,000 years before Stonehenge. Before humanity learned to write, to farm, or even to invent something as simple as the wheel, the world was, at least, as far as we knew, a simple place. Small bands of hunter-gatherers struggled to survive at the end of the last ice age. Our entire understanding of history was built upon that foundation, until that understanding was shattered. In the south of modern-day Turkey, on a barren hill, these primitive hunters built something that shouldn't have existed. They gathered, not to hunt, but to build. With bare hands and simple flint tools, they carved, moved, and raised 20-ton stone pillars. 12,000 years ago, they built the world's first temple. This is the story of Gobeklitepe, the oldest known monumental structure in human history, a place that has left us with an unsolved mystery. For thousands of years, it was nothing more than a gentle rise on the landscape used by local farmers. Occasionally, strange carved stones were found, but no one knew what lay beneath the surface. Then, in 1994, a German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt visited the site. He noticed something that others had missed. These were not random rocks. They were fragments of an enormous prehistoric structure. When his team began excavations, they didn't find a settlement. There were no houses, no hearths. Instead, they found something else. Massive T-shaped limestone pillars arranged in perfect circles. Despite being the oldest known architectural site on Earth, the layout showed a remarkable level of planning and proportion. The pillars were adorned with striking, intricate carvings, not random decorations, but depictions of snakes, scorpions, foxes, cranes, and bulls. Almost all were fierce, powerful animals. These symbols are thought to represent the religious, cosmological, or mythological beliefs of the time, reinforcing the idea that this was a ritual site. To interpret these symbols, we must think as they did, not as we do. For instance, while the snake today often represents death or danger, in their worldview, it may have symbolized transformation or rebirth. This was no village. It was a center of power, a place of ritual. And that's where the paradox lies. The people who built this were, by all accounts, hunter-gatherers. They had no metal tools, no beasts of burden to pull stones, no wheels, yet they quarried, transported, and erected 20-ton pillars using only human strength. Carving, moving, and raising these massive blocks with primitive tools required extraordinary social organization and logistical ability. Our entire understanding of civilization had been built on a simple timeline. First came farming, then villages. Villages grew into cities. And only then, with surplus food and complex societies, came temples and religion. Gobeklitepe destroys that timeline. It suggests the opposite might be true. What if the temple came first? What if the shared idea, the desire to build something sacred, was what forced people to organize? This site would have required hundreds of workers. Not just builders, but also their families. That's hundreds, maybe thousands of mouths to feed. Hunting alone could not have sustained them. The local resources would have been quickly exhausted. This led Klaus Schmidt to propose a revolutionary theory. Agriculture didn't lead to temples. Temples led to agriculture. The need to feed large gatherings at this sacred site may have pushed humanity to seek a stable food supply, to cultivate crops. The fact that the ancestor of modern wheat was first domesticated on the nearby slopes of Karakadag, just a few kilometers away, supports this theory. It suggests that civilization may have been born not from economic necessity, but from collective belief. Over millennia, the builders of Gobeklitepe continued to work, constructing one monumental circle of stones after another. But perhaps the strangest thing they ever did was not to build it, but to bury it. Around 8000 BCE, the entire 22-acre site was deliberately and carefully filled in. They covered the monumental circles with tons of earth, stones, and millions of animal bones, entombing their own masterpiece. This act must have required almost as much effort as its original construction. Why? Why would a society that spent centuries creating this sacred monument choose to erase it? That remains Gobeklitepe's greatest unanswered question. Was it a change in faith? Did a new religion arise, one that saw the old gods as taboo? Or, as the climate changed and the hunter-gatherer age ended, was this a ritual burial for a dying world? Perhaps it was meant to protect the site, to hide it from a threat or even from future generations. We don't know. They left us no writings, no explanations. Only, Stone's Gobeklitepe is not an anomaly. It's an echo. The first and loudest archaic echo from a past far more complex than we imagined. It proves that 12,000 years ago, humans weren't merely surviving, they were thinking, organizing, imagining the cosmos. And it leaves us with one haunting question. If this is what we've found, what else still lies buried, waiting to be heard? Subscribe to the Shard of History, and let's listen to them together.